Good morning and welcome to Today in LA. I'm Bill Rice Jr. Joined on the set today by Judge Esquire Will Matthews of Ozark, who calls in regularly, but Will is going to be serving our community as a judge, district judge, I guess, this morning.
City judge.
City judge.
Municipal court judge.
All right, so he is went ahead and came in early and is going to join us on set. Good morning, Will.
Good to see you.
And we also have calling us Mr. Mike Amos, who is in Birmingham. I guess you got a doctor's appointment today in Birmingham, Mike?
Yeah, I've got to see my doctor today, and I've been tonight with my little granddaughter, and everybody's been so nice. I tell you, they bought some Girl Scout cookies, and my favorite is that chocolate coconut cookie. And I can't stay away from them. They've already hit the box.
Now, Mike, you're not supposed to be eating that stuff.
I know I'm not, but I can't help it. I love those Girl Scout cookies.
How much does a box of Girl Scout cookies cost these days?
$4.09.
Right.
$4.09.
Support the Girl Scouts. Boy, that's a tradition that goes back.
Oh, and I haven't eaten a Girl Scout cookie in 20 years probably.
I like the mint ones, the thin mints. That's what I always get.
But those chocolate coconut ones are really good.
But see, Mike, I behave. I don't eat stuff like that unless I'm at the beach, and then I get Thomas Donuts. I can't help it then.
I know it's me too. But now you're diabetic, is that right?
Yes, I take insulin.
And I know.
How long you been doing that?
This is an interesting story. I've been a diabetic for 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was playing golf, and I got dehydrated. And, I didn't feel right. And I went to see the doctor, and he took my blood sugar, and it was like 450.
Oh my God.
He said,
"Oh boy,
you're diabetic." I said, "I'm not diabetic." So, "Oh yeah, you're diabetic, and you need to go to the hospital and have some test run, whatever." I said, "All right, tomorrow after work I'll go to the hospital." He said, "No, you're going right now." And the doctor, he's a friend of mine, he took me to the ER, and they admitted me, and it was election day 2000, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I went, they drugged me up and gave me insulin and all this, and it was the night Bush versus Gore.
Oh my God.
So I woke up the next morning and I asked the nurse, I said, "Well, who's the president?" Said, "We don't know yet." I didn't know for a couple of months probably.
I'm a political junkie and political science major. I stayed up all night watching those election returns, and I think I stayed up until about 4 in the morning, and it was, they didn't know.
They never could call Florida.
That was the Chads, the hanging Chad election. I mean, you say a vote, normally you say, a vote won't count nationwide, and where hundreds of millions of people voted, but gosh, in Florida it came down to a couple hundred votes.
That's right, and wound up in the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
And the Supreme Court made Bush Jr. He's not Bush Jr., but George W. made him the president. And I think looking back in history, he was a pretty good president.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, Will, not anybody I know has had 4 grandchildren any quicker than you have.
I've got 5.
Oh, no, 5.
Oh, yeah, I had one night before last.
Golly.
My son had his 4th child. He got married November the 11th, 2017, Veterans Day. And he was working for the president. And anyway, he got married in Ozark. They wanted to get married in Ozark, so they got married in Ozark. And he got her pregnant on the honeymoon. That was baby number 1.
Oh gosh.
Then they had the government shutdown. You remember that?
Yeah.
He got her pregnant during that. And then he had something else up there in Washington. Got her pregnant again. And now that was when the president got beat, and he was off for about a month, and then he got her pregnant again. So then this last one, she had this last one, and they had it in my house in Dothan in the living room in a swimming pool.
What?
Yes, and they filmed it. It was on Instagram.
Oh, no way.
So it's probably going to hit the internet.
Who delivered Who delivered this baby?
They had midwives, whatever you call it. They had 3 ladies that do this. It's legal in Alabama to do it now. And so they had the baby in my living room at 11:45 on Tuesday night, on Valentine's Day.
That's going to be a page in Will's memoirs.
Oh, yeah. And so I got to see this baby the next day. My daughter had a baby last week. I didn't get to see it until Sunday.
Oh, God.
Because of COVID. One person can go, one person can go to the hospital and that's it,
Now, Will, let me ask a wonderful question. What are their names?
All right, the first one was Emma Louise.
Emma Louise.
And Louise was the black lady that raised my kids. She died about 10 years ago.
Okay.
The next one is Elizabeth, and she's named after my Aunt Lib. You might remember Lib Trotman from Troy. Married Sam Carroll.
The Trotmans, yeah.
Cut this off. I've got to hear this.
Okay.
Well, Michael just joined us.
Yeah, what's going on?
I'm going through all
Will Matthews is on set with us, Michael, and he's giving us the rundown on all his 5 grandchildren.
All right, so my second grandchild, her name was Elizabeth. She was named after my Aunt Lib, who was married to Sam Carroll from Ozark, and her Bubba Trotman was her brother. I know you knew Bubba.
Okay, yeah, yes, sir.
And Aunt Lib died about 20 years ago. Yeah. She's been gone a long time. The third child was named Major Stonewall Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
And Major is a family name. We had Major Mills, Major Dunn, Major Carroll.
That's right. They were all dentists in Ozark, weren't they?
Yeah, they were dentists and whatever. And
John, go ahead.
It was a family name. So anyway, and Stonewall, he just liked Stonewall Jackson, so he just threw that in. And the baby born 2 days ago in my house in Dothan, her name is Mary Florence Matthews, and my mother's name was Florence Matthews. Florence Carroll Matthews.
So it sounds like you are kin to Bubba Trotman.
Oh yeah, he's my uncle, or was, yeah, Uncle Bubba.
Bubba Trotman.
Wait a minute, did you say the baby was born in your house?
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. You missed this. At 11:45, Valentine's night, the baby was born in my living room in a swimming pool, and they filmed it, and it was on Instagram live.
Oh my God!
And they had midwives. They had 3 midwives. I don't know what you call them. There's a name for it, and that's legal in Alabama. You can do that now. And
in a swimming pool?
In a swimming pool, one of these plastic blow-up swimming pools.
Was that the first time they had done that technique, or?
Oh, they do it all the time.
So this was.
Oh yeah, the baby was born underwater.
Oh no!
Oh yeah,
amazing.
And you can find it on Instagram. I have not had the courage to look at it yet, but. But unlike the one that was born last week, I got to see that one the next morning. And
so all the other babies from your son had been born in hospitals?
Yes. First three were born in Virginia in hospitals.
Well, why did they decide to do it differently this time? It's just
something they wanted to do.
Yeah. Now the last one's name was after your mother.
Yeah, Florence Matthews, and my mother was Florence Carroll from Ozark. Her daddy, they named Carroll High School after her daddy. And so they named this girl after her.
You know,
that is amazing.
Bubba Trotman is one of my favorite people, but everybody that's ever met Bubba Trotman was one of their favorite people. Bubba knew more people
Guess who I sat
in
next
Alabama and America than I think anybody I've ever known.
Guess who I sat next to at Bubba Trotman's funeral?
Who?
Kay Ivey.
Okay,
Governor Ivey.
Yeah.
She and Bubba were real close.
If you wanted to give me the definition of class act, it would be Bubba Trotman.
Oh, he's a great fellow.
Classy guy. Yeah.
Raised in Troy, Alabama.
Yeah.
I got to know him in Montgomery well, and one of his good friends was Judge Tyson, who was Coach Bryant's son-in-law.
Son-in-law, yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I'll tell you something else, too. On up the street was a young man named Farmer. You remember that?
Oh, yeah, he was probably the greatest mayor in the history of Montgomery.
Yeah, he was his best friend.
He was the first Republican I ever met.
Yeah.
I was a Democrat until 2002.
Huh.
And
yeah, Emory Farmer ran for governor.
he ran for governor and got beat, but I mean,
that was back when the Republicans could not win.
No, they couldn't win.
And he did pretty good.
The only Republicans that won were in Congress, and that was when Goldwater came in.
That's
and
right.
ran, and Alabama got a bunch of Republican congressmen.
So like you had Congressman Bill Dickinson.
That's right.
That was our congressman in Troy.
Long time, yeah.
He came in the Barry Goldwater election of '64, where
Right.
John F. Kennedy won pretty handily, but Goldwater did good in the South.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was Lyndon Johnson won.
Lyndon Johnson, I'm sorry, yeah.
Kennedy had been killed.
A year.
And '64 was when the Goldwater, he ran against Lyndon Johnson. He didn't win but about 2 states. I mean, he got killed in the election. But he won Alabama, and Alabama rode his coattails into Washington.
And I'll tell you what else he did. You know who became a politician on the national stage in that election? A actor named Ronald Reagan.
That's right.
Delivered a famous speech in support of Goldwater, and that kind of put Ronald Reagan on the national map as
Then he got elected governor for 8 years.
4 years, I think. Yeah, he soon ran and became governor.
How can a Republican win in California? It's crazy. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's Republican, and he won in California. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, how they can do it, but they did it.
I would call Arnold Schwarzenegger a Republican in name only,
Yeah,
which is a rhino.
Yeah.
But I think those days are over in California. But
Yeah.
Big win by the Tennessee Vols last night over Kentucky. Did y'all watch it up?
It was a blowout. I turned it off at the half, but, Tennessee was up 14 at the half.
Yeah, when I turned it off, they were up by 20. I think they won by 13.
Yeah, it was over with at halftime.
I saw, in doing my show prep, since I knew Mike wasn't going to be here, I actually looked at the internet and to get some stuff to talk about, and I saw that Ole Miss won over South Carolina. You see how they won?
I did not.
The guy hit a half-court shot at the buzzer.
Oh, wow.
And they won by 3 points. He banked it in from half-court. That's how Ole Miss won.
I'll have to pull that up. I'm sure that's everywhere today.
I'm tempted to go to Auburn tonight. I'm going to be in Montgomery. I've got a meeting this afternoon in Montgomery. I'm very tempted to go to Auburn just to see Auburn shellac my old school Vandy. They're going to kill them. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it or not. I might do it.
Well, we need to talk about some high school basketball because it's getting serious. Because we are now going to the regionals, which I can start keeping up with it. I think that's the Sweet 16 in high school basketball. Steve gave us some scores of area teams. Brantley easily won over Florala, so they're going to the Sweet 16. Highland Home won. Geneva County won over Arrington easily. GW Long won. Houston Academy won. Opp won. Houston Academy, I guess these are boys. They won 88-22.
Ooh.
Gosh.
That's
Who do they play?
New Brockton.
Wow.
Boy, I tell you
What about the Charles Henderson Trojans? They beat Heaven.
Oh, well, I buried
They beat them bad.
They won 99-64. So Charles Henderson almost hit 100 points in a 32-minute game. So Charles Henderson is going to the regionals in Montgomery, I think, is where that'll take place.
Guess who they're going to play?
I think they're going to play Ozark.
Carroll High.
So,
Ozark won. Carroll Ozark beat Greenville 65-56. So see, here's the 4 teams in the Southeast Regional: Carroll, Charles Henderson, Brew Baker Tech, and Pike Road. Beat Sylacauga by 2 points. So I don't know who will match up. Probably Carroll and Charles Henderson.
And I'll tell you this: that was a great battle between Sylacauga and Pike Road.
Also, you follow one.
Or BB Comer? Who was playing?
Who was Charles Henderson playing?
No, but I mean, was it Sylacauga or BB Comer High School of Sylacauga? Well, do we want to put a wager, Will Matthews, Charles Henderson against Ozark?
I would think Charles Henderson would win, but Carroll High's best player has been out the whole year until the last week or two, so he's back.
Oh boy!
If Carroll High of Ozark wins over Charles Henderson, I'll give you a dozen donuts from Thomas's Donuts next time you're at the Yellow House.
Well,
all right.
Charles Henderson barely beat Greenville. I think Greenville slowed the ball down.
Yeah.
And then Carroll beat Greenville by 9 points, so it might be an evenly matched game.
Now, I don't know the young man's last name, but his first name's Carmelo, and he's a highly sought-after linebacker from Carroll High, and he's been out with an injury from football, and I don't know if he had to have surgery or not, but he's back now playing basketball, and they say he's a phenomenal basketball player too. So, you know, he's been out the whole year basically, and Carroll High's got a great record. They've only lost 4 or 5 games all year.
Well, Charles Henderson has also got a very good record. They've been in the top 5 in the state, and they have played the toughest schedule I remember any Charles Henderson basketball team ever playing.
I think Carroll High's in the top 10. They're not in the top 5. They're in the top 10.
Yeah, but they're good. Carroll is very good.
Yeah.
You know the old coach. He'll be at every one of those games. I bet, won't you? Don't you think?
Coach Skinner?
Yeah.
No, he doesn't watch them much.
Coach Cecil Skinner, one of the all-time great coaches in Alabama, and of course came out of Selma, Alabama, and then coached at Carroll High of Ozark for
long time.
14 years. Yeah. And what a great gentleman he is. He's a basketball enthusiast.
I've been to several Final Fours with him. My dad and I would go with him, and he would go on the Saturday, you know, when the 4 teams play.
Yeah,
And then he'd go home. And Daddy and I'd stay for the Monday night game, and I would always sit in his ticket, which would be he was on the coach's thing for years. And one year, I'll never forget, it was 1982. North Carolina was playing Georgetown in the Superdome in New Orleans. I was on the 3rd row, and on one side of me was Al McGuire, and the other side of me was Frank McGuire.
Yeah, that's right.
I was sitting with royalty, and that's the game where Michael Jordan was a freshman, and he popped in about a 25-footer to beat Georgetown.
That's right, and the legend of Michael Jordan began.
And that was his.
And you were there.
Yeah.
One of those guys coached at South Carolina, and the other one coached at DePaul. Is that right? Marquette.
Marquette.
And Frank McGuire coached at South Carolina and North Carolina, both. Both of them.
Well, Al McGuire became famous for being the lead television guy, analyst for many years. I think he was on NBC for some reason.
I don't know if y'all remember this, but when I was at Vanderbilt, we won the SEC. 2 of my roommates were playing on the basketball team. They had the Mid-East Regional in Tuscaloosa. And back then, only 1 team from the SEC got in the tournament. It was the last year that happened. Mm-hmm. And Alabama went 16-2 and did not get in the tournament because the 2 games they lost were to Vanderbilt.
Wow.
And Vanderbilt was 16-2, but they lost 1 game at Alligator Alley down in Florida, and they lost 1 game at home against Tennessee.
I bet the next year Alabama got in. I bet that's the team that lost to Indiana in the Sweet 16.
It was 2 years later. It was 2 years later they lost to Indiana.
That Alabama team, which could have beat Indiana, they were
Yeah.
tied with like 2 minutes left.
Oh yeah.
That Alabama team would have won the national championship in basketball if they
they'd
had
have won that
Indiana
game.
stole the ball. If you remember, Indiana stole the ball at half court, drove the length of the court to win the game.
I remember I was only about 8 years old, but I can remember there was some dubious foul they called on Alabama that even to this day I question.
And then, of course, Bobby Knight was the coach at Indiana. Was so good, and
Yeah, that team went undefeated. I think that's the last college basketball.
Undefeated team.
And I'll always remember the Vanderbilt bunch was Bosman, Spear, Ford, and Van Bredikoff.
Well, my roommates, Mike, at the time were Joe Ford and Terry Compton.
Well, and two of those were the fabulous four.
Yeah, there were 8 people living together. We had 2 basketball players, 3 football players, me, I was the only golfer. We had and 2 baseball players.
Did y'all all get along and have fun?
Oh yeah, we had a great time. There were 8 of us living together. And Bill Parcells was assistant coach at Vanderbilt at the time.
Wow.
And he was linebacker coach. But his job was to do curfew on the players. So Coach Parcells got me to be the spy because he was too lazy to go around checking on everybody. So he wanted to know when they violated the curfew. And so when they go to practice, he'd run them like dogs, and they never knew who turned them in.
And you were the great coach.
I was the rat.
See, these were genuine college athletes back then.
I'll tell you something sad, though. Joe Ford, he was from Mayfield, Kentucky. And Joe got killed in a car wreck about 4 or 5 years ago.
I didn't know that.
Well, Terry Compton was really, they had the F troop, but Terry Compton was really the best player on the team. And Jan Van Bredikoff, and Terry Compton and Bill Ligon were probably the 3 best players. But the F troop, they were my age, and they got all the publicity because they were the F troop.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. He was left-handed. Compton was left-handed.
No, he was right. He was right-handed.
All right, I'm wrong.
But Terry Compton was from Horse Cave, Kentucky.
I guess you went to all the basketball games, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I went to the game in LSU where the fight broke out, and one of LSU's players punched Van Bredikoff in the face and broke his nose.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, it was nasty. It was nasty, but.
Was it Apple Sanders or Figures that did?
I don't remember it. No, it wasn't either one of those because those guys was white. It was one of their black players.
Yeah.
And he punched Van Bredikoff in the nose.
And a lot of people don't realize that Van Bredikoff was a 6'7" guard. He was 6'7".
At least.
Play guard.
Yeah, he played point guard at 6'7". Compton was a 6'6" small forward. Joe Ford was about 6'1". Fosnes was 6'6", 6'7". He was a forward. And Butch Fear was about 6'4".
Yeah.
So they really played 3 or 4 guards the whole game.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this. Was this before or after Clyde Lee?
Oh, way after. Clyde Lee was mid-60s.
All right, so he was about...
This is 74, 75.
You can...
You remember Clyde Lee, though, don't you?
I never saw Clyde Lee play.
You talk about coaching trees and 6 degrees of separation, 3 degrees of separation. You can do it from... you can create a tree or a line or a connection between Coach Bryant and Coach Saban, and it runs through Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
Who hired Bill Parcells at the New York Giants?
Ray Perkins.
Ray Perkins, a big Alabama guy.
Oh, yeah.
And then he hired Bill Parcells, and then who did Bill Parcells hire? Bill Belichick.
That's right.
And then who did Bill Belichick hire? Nick Saban.
Yeah, Bill Belichick and Nick Saban were on the same staff at Cleveland. And a lot of people don't remember that Belichick was at Cleveland and did a horrible job at Cleveland. You know.
Yeah.
And they got fired.
They got fired, yeah.
And that's when Saban went to college. He went to Michigan State. Well, he went somewhere before Michigan State.
I think he went to, did he go to Toledo and coach
somewhere.
for 1 year?
Yeah, he went to some little school, and then he went to Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I mean,
well, yeah, Perkins, he didn't really light up the world, the New York Giants, but he hired Parcells, and it took Parcells a while to get it going, but he turned it around. And he hired a little former Division III player named Bill Belichick, whose dad had been a longtime coach and staff member at Navy.
Yeah.
To be kind of like an analyst, and then eventually let him coach on the field. And heck, they all became legends. Parcells
has Lawrence Taylor. That's why they won.
That's right. Belichick had to coach, and he coached Lawrence Taylor. And, you know, Belichick won't back down. And I've read Lawrence Taylor say that at first he just looked down his nose at this little guy that was that hadn't really played any football, trying to tell him how to play linebacker. But he slowly came to, you know, respect Belichick and listen to him.
It's going to be 68, 70 degrees here in Birmingham today.
Mike, guess who else was on that staff at Vanderbilt? Phil Fulmer.
Really?
Oh, man.
And Phil Fulmer went to Tennessee, and Majors was at Tennessee and hired him, and then Majors had a heart attack. He was in the hospital, and Phil Fulmer conducted a coup and got the job while he was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know who else coached at Vanderbilt once upon a time? Your old golfing buddy. Who was that?
Bear Bryant.
That's right. Coach Bryant was an assistant at Vanderbilt for 4 or 5 years.
Jess Neely gave him the first job he ever had.
Right out of college. And
he was married and had a little baby. And Jess Neely and him, you know, Jess Neely.
And I have looked at the records of Vanderbilt in that era. They were really, really good. Vanderbilt was a powerhouse in college football in the SEC in the 20s and 30s.
Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech back then were good. Now they stink. But
they had an all-pro quarterback that played with the Chicago Bears. Name him
Billy Wade.
Billy Wade. That's right.
You know, I'm a contrarian, and I've always thought that Vanderbilt could win in the SEC because they did it one time for about 20 years. They had a real strong record back when in the early days of football.
James Franklin won 9 games at Vandy 3 straight years, and that's, you know.
But the city of Nashville is so cool and so desirable. I would think you could recruit people that would want to live in Nashville. And it's got to have a lot of money and rich alumni if they would just. But there seems to be no real interest in becoming a football school.
Well, and they've got a pro team too now.
Well, they got all those great. They got all the great bars and restaurants just right off campus now.
Oh yeah.
There's so much to do right around that campus. It's so much fun to go up there.
Well,
Dudley Field just holds 40,000.
It's very small.
Is that right?
That's right. It's very small.
And
well, it's Vanderbilt was once, believe it or not, look it up. I would consider them a football power. They were winning 80-90% of their games every year. You know who was another football power back in the day? The University of Minnesota has won about 5 national championships.
Golden Gopher,
See how things can change over time?
You never hear many stories about Bryant when he was at Maryland. I wonder what his experience was when he went to Maryland. That seems really strange. He took a job up there.
Well, I'll tell you.
I don't think he was there long, Michael.
Well, here's
2 years, wasn't it?
Nope, here's the story. Since I'm some kind of an authority on Coach Bryant. Coach Bryant was in the Navy, and for most of the Navy, he apparently coached football. They had military teams back then, so he coached a pre-flight team in the latter years of World War II. Plus, he had already made his reputation as an assistant coach before World War II, so there were a lot of people that knew about him and wanted him to coach. Well, I can't remember who. Somebody jumped on him and hired him. The Maryland president hired him, and what Coach Bryant did is he just brought his military team that had been so good. Half of his first Maryland team was those former players he had on his Maryland. No, that was the Fort Benning team.
Okay.
My dad played on the Doughboys with Pat Dye after he finished his eligibility. But Coach Bryant coached it 1 year at Maryland, and they had a good team. I think they went like 7-2, 8-2, and then he went to Kentucky where he was for about 8 years. But he had some kind of disagreement with the leadership at Maryland. But that was his first head coaching job, was at Maryland.
And of course, his big player, the player that was so good back then, was who?
I don't know who it was at Maryland, but
Perilli.
Babe Perilli at Kentucky. His record at Kentucky.
That's a Kentucky.
It was at Kentucky, yeah.
His record at Kentucky is very impressive, and I've always made the case that you can argue that Nick Saban's the greatest coach of all time, but please don't say there's no debate, because there is a debate, and I think the strongest part of the debate is that look at how well Coach Bryant did at Kentucky, the mother of all basketball schools, for 8 years. And then you look at how, say, Nick Saban did at Michigan State. Would you agree that Michigan State had a lot more tradition than Kentucky in football and a lot more resources?
Oh, yes.
Well, Nick Saban, except for his last year, was 500 at Michigan State. So Coach Bryant somehow just far exceeded what Nick Saban could do at Kentucky.
I know Bill knows this, but do you know why Bryant left Kentucky for Texas A&M?
Because Adolph Rupp got a Cadillac and he got a lighter.
That's exactly. He got a watch. He got a wristwatch, and Adolph Rupp got a brand new Cadillac, and both of them won the SEC. So.
Well, the story is he got an engraved lighter, I think. And here's why
it might have been. I thought.
And it might be an urban legend. That there's some truth, obviously, to that story because it's been repeated too many times.
Yeah.
Rupp got a Cadillac and Bryant got a watch or a lighter.
Something token.
Well, I know that because when we lived in Opelika, my dad was president of the Lee County Alumni Association. And Dad wanted to do a good job for the Alumni Association, so he, of course, got Coach Bryant to come speak at the annual meeting at Saugerhatchee Country Club, which Coach Bryant had never been to Auburn or Lee County.
I bet that was the first and the last time that ever happened.
Matter of fact, they did. They wrote a story about it in the program for the Alabama-Auburn game in 1989, the first time Alabama went to Auburn. They ran a story about the one time Coach Bryant came to Auburn, and my dad got him there. But it was a huge deal, and I can remember it to this day, meeting Coach Bryant at the airport, and there were hundreds of little Alabama fans there. Well, for a gift, they gave Coach Bryant an engraved lighter with the scores of every Alabama victory over Auburn.
All right.
That was my mom's idea because she remembered that story about the Coach Bryant getting that lighter. So that's the first time I met Coach Bryant. I was about 11 years old. There's even there's somebody there. I'll tell you, there's some more to that story. That day that Coach Bryant came, he had some players had broken some rules and gotten in trouble. It was big news the next day. Had to kick them off the team, or I can't remember what they did. But for a while, there was a question of whether he could become or would make it. But he wasn't going to let down a former player, and so he took the university. They flew him down from Tuscaloosa, got to the Auburn airport, which right near Saugerhatchee.
That's right across the interstate from it.
And for some reason, I don't know if Coach Bryant wanted to do this or it was my dad's idea. They wanted to show him the golf course, So I remember that Dad and Coach Bryant and whoever was with him, they drove around the cart path in a car to show him the golf course at Saugerhatchee.
That was when it was just first built, probably. Was that the new club or the old club?
That was the old club, right before they went to
well, that club's on the north side of the interstate. It's now a public course owned by the city. Yeah.
But I think that my mom says she sat next to Coach Bryant at the banquet, and she was in charge of going to get Coach Bryant his scotches.
Well, he didn't have a drink at the banquet, did he?
Yes,
I'm sure he did.
But you know, he wouldn't have. I mean, he didn't get liquored up or embarrass himself. You know, he did a great job in his remarks, and
he drank scotch. That's what he drank, scotch.
My mom
What
did.
did he drink?
Crown Royal.
Did he drink?
Crown
Did he
Royal,
drink
whatever
Stewart?
Crown Royal. What is Crown Royal?
I'm sure these Auburn fans.
Crown Royal's a Canadian whiskey.
All right, that's what he drank, Crown Royal.
I'm sure if we got any Auburn fans listening, that they could care less what he drank.
Well, you know,
Speaking
Auburn.
of Auburn's spring practice has been set. They'll start March 14th. The 8A game at Jordan Hare will be on April the 9th.
Well, that's great. When is Troy, Michael? Have you? Can you remember that?
Troy hadn't released any of that information yet.
Well, let's give Steve a chance. We probably need to take a commercial break.
Yeah, we do.
And I hope everybody is looking at all these fine sponsors. I'm going to start going out there and talking to some businesses and try to get us some more advertisers. So it's the best advertising in town. You can look at that Sandbuck Insurance right there, Sisters Restaurant. Let people know about you.
Right here, right now. It's the Premier Super Truck Sale. 1,500, 2,500, 3,500, and even a 4,500. Ram, Ford, Chevy, GMC. Over 55 trucks. Super Truck Sale price. Save up to $10,000 on select models. Nobody beats a Premier deal. Nobody.
Shipping Wars is back and bigger than ever.
More work, more money.
These shippers have a long road ahead. Who will come out on top?
If we can get it there on time, we'll make some good money.
Shipping Wars. New episodes Tuesdays at 10. Only on A&E.
In the market for a new or pre-owned vehicle? We've got what you're looking for.
So come see us at Bill Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC in Troy, and you too can experience the Jackson satisfaction.
Bill Jackson Chevrolet Buick GMC.
The Walmart Distribution Center in Brundage is now hiring. We've extended our $2,000 signing bonus until the end of January 2022. And you can go back to school with our Live Better You program. Apply online today.
At Cost Plus 10%, we offer your favorite brands at the best price. At Piggly Wiggly, we keep it simple. We price our products at cost, then add 10% at checkout. We carry all your favorite name brand foods, and we accept manufacturer coupons. Find us on Facebook and see our weekly specials.
Troy Cable Security Wi-Fi doorbell camera allows you to answer the door from your smartphone when you are at home, at work, or on the go. When a visitor presses the button, Troy Cable Security sends a live video feed to your smartphone so you can see, hear, and speak to the person at your door. With the doorbell camera, you can have your porch light turn on automatically when it detects motion at night to create the appearance that someone is at home. You can view video clips so you can always know who stopped by when you are out. Troy Cable Security. You love them, protect them.
Right here, right now. It's the Premier Super Truck Sale. 1,500, 2,500, 3,500, and even a 4,500. Ram, Ford, Chevy, GMC. Over 55 trucks. Super Truck Sale price. Save up to $10,000 on select models. Nobody beats a Premier deal. Nobody.
Back and then 900.
I like those bets. Those future bets. They're fun in golf. All right, we're back on the air. And Will was telling us that he went to Mississippi where it's legal to gamble and you can get a futures bet on national championship in basketball. And he put a little bet on Auburn to win it all at 9-1 odds.
Yeah, I put $100 on it. If it wins, I get 1,000. So I get, actually it's a $900 profit if they do it.
So you get your $100 back and then you get $900.
But
I would have done the exact same thing, but I would have bet $10.
I went to Auburn a couple of weeks ago and saw Auburn just destroy Alabama, and I said, oh, they're good. So, now they've lost a game since then. They lost to Arkansas, but, hey, if you're on the road in the SEC in one of the big stadiums, there's three of them, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
Yep.
If you're in any of those three stadiums on the road, you're going to be a heavy underdog. I don't care how good you are. And Kentucky found that out last night. They just got blown out.
Yeah.
You know,
for years and years, and I'll let y'all decide which one it is. Tennessee, Jim holds right at 30,000 or
20,000, over 20.
It's a little smaller than Rupp Arena. I think it seats 22,000.
I tell you what, we visited Rupp Arena about 3 years ago, and we sat up there in the nosebleed. Boy, that was a long ways away from that court, but that's where our seats were.
Yeah.
Mike, when I was at Vandy,
Troy covered the line that night too. 'Cause I had him out in Vegas for about $250.
when I was at Vandy, and I went to Lexington, they were playing in I think they were playing in Assembly Hall back then, or whatever they called it. It wasn't Rupp. And we whipped them by 25 points on their own floor.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when did you graduate from Vanderbilt?
78.
78.
Yeah. This was in 74.
And you played golf for 4 years? Could you play all 4 years? Or were you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Played 4 years.
Where did y'all play? Where did you practice?
Bellmead Country Club in Nashville. Very nice place. Ultra private. Really good track.
That was
It was a recruiting thing for Vandy. Now Vandy owns their own golf course now. It's very nice up there. It's called the Legends, and they own the course. So, you know.
I guess the statute of limitations has run out. I got a lawyer and a judge next to me, so I can tell this story, and he'll get a kick out of it because his little brother was a pledge brother of mine. We were in the same fraternity at Alabama.
Warren. Yes.
When you're a freshman in your second semester, you do something called a road trip.
Oh, yeah.
And the actives come up with this list of vandalism and crazy things you've got to do on your road trip. And I hope they don't do it anymore.
They do it. I'm sure they do it.
Well, our group, they divide your pledge class up into about 5 groups, and you take a road trip to a different college. Ours was Vanderbilt, so I have been to Vanderbilt's campus, and one of the things we had to do is we had to get a flag from one of the holes at Bellmead Country Club.
Oh, that's terrible.
And we did it. And we did more than that.
When
that's all I'm going to admit to.
When I was at Vandy, there were a lot of Wiregrass guys that I knew that were Sigma News at Alabama. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on my door. And they took a picture of me in my underwear at 3 o'clock. That was one of the things they had to do.
Yeah.
Well, they also had to get a basketball from Vanderbilt.
That's right.
So I took them over to the memorial the next day. And
did they get it?
I asked Coach Skinner, Vandy's coach, Coach Skinner, if these guys could have a basketball, and he gave them a basketball. It was an old basketball, but it had Vanderbilt University on the ball. It was one of their, and it was a leather practice basketball. It was an old ball, but he gave them that ball, and they took a picture with Coach Skinner too.
We had to do that too. We got a basketball, but nobody gave it to us. We went to the game, and it was Vanderbilt versus Tennessee.
Oof.
We had to get a picture with the Tennessee cheerleaders. We did that. Boy, they were pretty.
Oh, yeah.
And we had to get a picture with Coach C.M. Newton, who was coaching the basketball team then, and he had just lost the heartbreaker to Tennessee, and he's such a class guy that I don't know how we got in the locker room or saw him after the game, but we did.
Back then you could. I mean, you know, it was different.
And we got a picture with Coach Newton, too.
You know, C.M. Newton coached at Alabama, he coached at Vanderbilt and at Kentucky. Is that right?
No, he was athletic director at Kentucky.
He never coached at Kentucky?
No,
He played
at Kentucky, and he coached at Transylvania, which is a college in Kentucky.
Why did I say that?
He's the guy that hired Bill Curry from Alabama.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my daddy and I were at the Sugar Bowl, and Alabama was playing Miami, and Miami beat the crap out of Alabama. I mean, it was awful.
Well, the final score wasn't too bad, but they were much better.
It was bad. It was like 41-17 or something. I mean, it was horrible. And so anyway, my daddy and C.M. Newton were very good friends. And C.M. was down there, and he said, C.M., what in the world are you doing down here at the Alabama-Miami game? He said, oh, it's a conference thing and all this, and, I don't want to support the conference, so I'm just down here. He was down there talking to Curry about coming to Kentucky, and Curry left Alabama and went to Kentucky. He was not fired. He left,
We have referenced Coach Bryant leaving Kentucky because he didn't want to be the second dog to Adolph Rupp, really, is why he left. His ego was too big. You couldn't have two legendary coaches on the same campus. Well, everybody always thought that there was this great friction between them, but both men said, no, we got along fine, and we're friends and stayed friends. As an example of that, when Coach Bryant needed a basketball coach, when he was athletic director at Alabama, who did he call for a recommendation? He called Adolph Rupp. And who did Adolph Rupp recommend?
C.M. Newton.
C.M. Newton. And so that's how C.M. Newton came to Alabama.
And C.M. Newton was the first coach at Alabama, basketball coach, to ever recruit black players. And that was really the key, because there were so many good black players in Alabama. Hell, Kentucky would come in there and steal them. All these big teams.
Yeah, that's right. Alabama's basketball team recruited black athletes before Wilbur Jackson was recruited out of Ozark. And then also, everybody talks about Coach Bryant could have done more. He had the stature and could have integrated sooner, which is probably true. But he did do some good things, and he told C.M. Newton, when he asked him, can I recruit black players, Coach Bryant said, yes, go get them. And
he did.
And it turned the basketball program around.
No question about it. Let's take a short break.
No, we
just took a break.
We just took a break. You can take a break. I don't want to make I was going to say something else, though.
The winning play for Vanderbilt against Alabama the year Vandy won the conference by beating Alabama twice was in Tuscaloosa. Do you remember a guard Alabama had named Odom?
Yep.
All right, they had Charles Cleveland, they had Odom, they had Leon Douglas, they had
T.R. Dunn.
They had a great team. Well, Odom had the ball, and this was back, no shot clock. The game is tied, and Odom's standing out by half court. They're just running it down for the last shot. Well, my roommate, Terry Compton, he was about 6'6", and Odom was about 6 feet or 5'11", something like that. And he was holding the ball above his head. And Compton rushed him, tipped the ball out of his hand, stole the ball, and drove down for a layup with about 3 seconds to go. And Vandy won by 2 points. Yep.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yep. And this is what's sad. Terry Compton died about 6 months ago of COVID. And he was in great shape, too. I talked to his wife about 2 weeks before he died, and she said, this is crazy. He runs, he rides bicycles, all this, and he got COVID, and they were living in Kentucky. And they moved him down to Nashville to Vanderbilt Hospital, and they couldn't save him. Mm-hmm. And if Vanderbilt Hospital couldn't save you, you're just out of luck.
Yeah, big news out of Disney World yesterday. Disney World announced that if you are vaccinated, you no longer have to wear masks outside or inside at Disney World resorts.
Well, I'm getting ready to find out because we're going to Disney World in spring break, and
well, they had 70,000 people at the Super Bowl with no mask.
Yeah, that was in L.A.
Yeah, that's getting a lot of attention. There's a lot of people that have been very forward about you should wear masks, and then of course they were videotaped and pictured without their mask, and so people are pointing out the hypocrisy of some of these celebrities that were at the game. And then the next day, they show pictures of all the 6-year-old kids with their mask on at school, while LeBron James and the mayor and everybody else was at the Super Bowl without their mask partying.
Yeah, interesting story that came out yesterday. Conference USA released their football schedule, and it had Marshall, Southern Miss, and Old Dominion playing games in Conference USA. The Marshall's president and athletic director, Southern Miss's athletic director, president, Old Miss's president, athletic director have all said they are leaving Conference USA in June and joining the Sun Belt. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Wow.
Moving forward, especially for Troy, being in the Sun Belt Conference, they got to figure out what the scheduling is going to be like. I'm sure Conference USA doesn't have enough teams to really build a conference next year.
Michael, what's UAB in? What aren't they in that?
UAB is making the jump to the American Conference.
Okay, that's a good conference.
Yeah, they'll now play Memphis and teams like that again.
Why can't Troy get in a conference like that?
Well, Troy's in a good conference.
It's not that good, though.
They don't have there's no size to Troy. You want to get the area bigger market.
I got you.
We thought when all this conference realignment started that Conference USA would pilfer the best teams of the Sun Belt Conference. Well, the opposite happened. I mean, the Sun Belt got the teams from the Conference USA. The Sun Belt has built a strong little brand. It's so impressive, and they've done it by not going into the big markets that everybody says you must. What they did is they just got schools that had rich athletic traditions and good fan support, and went with those teams, and it's worked out really well, in my opinion.
I want to say this. I see Circle Insurance is being advertised.
Yep.
Sammy Judah has been in the hospital probably 3 or 4 weeks in Dothan. He's had all kind of problems, but I talked to his daughter yesterday, and they're hoping he gets to come home in the next day or two. But he's had some.
He's probably watching this show, and I appreciate Sam Judah so much. He's been with me from the get-go. It's a real true Ozark guy, and I appreciate it. He and my good buddy Jack Jackson play a lot of tennis together.
Yeah.
I think my friend Melissa Henley Parsons works for him at Circle S Insurance. Melissa that grew up in Troy and was in the class of '83, and now lives in Ozark.
What was her maiden name?
Henley. You probably knew her mother and father, the Henleys that lived in the country club neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right.
Super smart girl. She was in my class. Sandra Huggins Lee, that now works for the Yellow Fella in Abbeville, was in my class. Candy Whitman, that Coach Whitman's daughter. Elizabeth Argini, Rudy Argini's daughter. We had some sharp. Looking back, you say, boy, you knew they were sharp and smart, but they've all done super well in the business world.
That's great. Of course, they all had good mommies, good mamas and daddies, and like Coach Bryant said, I saw Bill Rice's mama and daddy at the game, and they were doing good. Bill's from Troy.
He would do that when he would. That's why you and me, we know all the hometowns of all these former Alabama players, because Coach Bryant would mention the hometown on the show.
That's right. He's from Mulga. Y'all know who that was from Mulga?
He's from Wilbur's from Ozark.
Yeah, Wilbur's from Ozark. I saw his mom and dad at the game.
If you haven't seen it, go see Wilbur's mural in Ozark. It's unbelievable.
I know it. It's probably become an instant tourist attraction.
It is. It is. It's really good. I mean, I was shocked how good it is.
What else? What is that? What's on the picture?
It's got Coach Bryant's on one side. It's got Wilbur as a high school player, and Wilbur as a college player, and then Wilbur as a professional player. And it's got a big picture of his face, and it goes through. He's got a Super Bowl ring with the Redskins.
He's a big man, isn't he?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But he went to Alabama. He was recruited as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
That's why he wore number 80. But after his freshman year, which you weren't eligible then they moved him to running back. And we've talked a lot about Bobby Marlowe and what a standout he was and how much he averaged per carry. But I bet he didn't average more than Wilbur Jackson. If Wilbur Jackson would have gotten the ball 25 times a game like Bo Jackson did his senior year, Wilbur Jackson would have won the Heisman.
He'd have won the Heisman, but Coach Bryant didn't believe in that. But the reason...
back on that team that was very similar. Do y'all know where he's from out here, Bruce, East Bruce? Do y'all know who I'm talking about?
Calvin Culver.
Calvin Culver out of East Bruce High School, W.S. Neal, and he was a great star at Alabama.
When Wilbur was a senior, they already had Ellis Beck and Dexter Wood from Ozark on the team. Okay, right. They graduated the year before. Somebody sent some film to Coach Bryant on a quarterback there. Alan Kelly, his cousin was Joe Kelly, and Joe Kelly played for Bear Bryant. Mm-hmm. And so he looked at the film, and he said, I don't want the quarterback. I want that guy catching the ball out there. That's the guy I want. So Pat Dye went and recruited Wilbur Jackson, and nobody wanted him.
Wow.
And so basically he
had him.
He had him, Coach Dye recruited him.
People do not give...
Why did he wear 80 at Alabama? How did that work out?
I don't know. I guess he came in as a wide receiver.
Yeah, and they gave him that number when he was a wide receiver, and he just kept it when he went to running back.
Yeah.
What was his number at Ozark?
I think it was 40.
But Pat Dye was not just any assistant coach at Alabama. He played a part in recruiting a lot of really, really good players, and he won many national champions. So he does not get the credit from Alabama people of how important he was, as he was an assistant at Alabama for like 8 or 9 years. And you know who got Coach Dye his job as an assistant at Alabama?
Coach Dye did.
Bill Rush.
My dad. They were. I think this is probably the most significant thing my dad ever did as far as history of the state. Dad and Pat Dye were good buddies playing for the Doughboys at Fort Benning after their college and pro careers were over.
That's right.
They had commissions in the military, and you could. They were lieutenants for half a year leading platoons, but the other half they played football, which was big time football. It was former college players and former pro players. And they became good buddies, and Pat Dye let it be known to my dad that he wanted to go into coaching, and he asked him, he said, well, could you talk to Coach Bryant? So Dad wrote Coach Bryant a letter and said, my friend Pat Dye wants to coach, and he wants to coach for you. And Dad said a couple days later, he was in Troy at grandmother's house, and he got a phone call. It was Coach Bryant following up on that letter and wanting to know more about Pat Dye. And Dad talked him up, and a couple days later he was interviewed and had the job. But if Pat Dye had not coached at Alabama and had the success he had, he probably wouldn't have one day later become the Auburn coach.
Yeah, no question about that.
So indirectly, Dad got Pat Dye his job at Auburn, and then the ironic part about it is that Pat Dye is the one who turned the tables in the state. It was Alabama dominated the state easily for 12 years, and that all changed when Pat Dye went to Auburn.
Did your dad stay in touch with Dye when he became Auburn's coach?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't bothering him, but I remember one time Pat Dye came and spoke at a Troy Auburn club and the Holiday Inn, and Dad went out there and said hello to him, and you could just tell that they were just really glad to see each other. I mean, they hunted all the time, fished all the time,
I've got a picture in my office of Pat Dye and Bear Bryant hunting together.
Yeah, that's an iconic picture. Everybody's got that one.
Well, so Dad knows Coach Dye really, really well. And they were probably best friends for 2 years in the Army. They played football next to each other. And I'll tell you this about Coach Dad says that Pat Dye is one of the toughest football players that he has ever seen.
You know, Coach Dye played for Bear Bryant's best friend, that guy at Georgia that coached at Georgia. That they sued the New York, what was it? The New York Post or the Times or something. They sued. No, the Saturday Evening Post. Maybe.
I like telling these stories.
You know who the quarterback of that team was that Georgia at the time?
Francis Tarkenton.
Fran Tarkenton.
I'll tell you one story about that kind of illustrates what a badass Pat Dye was. Dad says they're practicing in football and for the Fort Benning Doughboys, and some guy jumped off. There was a cadence, and everybody relaxed, or somebody jumped off sides, and everybody stopped. But then some defensive lineman fired off and hit some player when he was relaxed. It was a cheap shot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it might have hit Dad, or I'm not sure. But Dad had words with that guy, or somebody had words with him, and Pat Dye had words with him. Dad said the next play, Pat Dye fired off on that guy. Not only did he just bury him with his block, but then he just proceeded to beat the crap out of that guy.
Good for him.
I wouldn't want to mess with Pat Dye.
You got Alabama, Mississippi State tonight in Coleman Coliseum. Alabama will be starting at 6 o'clock on ESPN2. Alabama will then travel to play at Kentucky on CBS at noon on Saturday. Should be good.
Well, Alabama's got they got to play at Kentucky.
Tough stretch.
Yeah, at LSU. Alabama could have a losing record in the SEC.
That's really Alabama's game tonight. It's really the only good game in the conference because Auburn plays Vandy, they'll blow them out. LSU plays Georgia, they'll blow them out. So the other two games.
Alabama plays at Vanderbilt on Tuesday night after the Kentucky game, and then they finish with South Carolina at home, A&M at home, and then their last game is on the road at LSU.
Yeah.
Alabama has a hard time beating Vanderbilt. Alabama went 15 or 20 years without ever beating Vanderbilt in Vanderbilt. So
they'll have no problem
this year
because Vanderbilt, in their ultimate wisdom, has forbidden students from going to the games.
Oh, you're kidding.
And so they've been having 6,000 or 7,000 people at games, and it's just not, their home court advantage.
Because of COVID?
Because of COVID, yes.
Oh, wow.
They used to fill it up every ball game.
15,600 every night.
Why are these academic minds, we've talked about this great hospital that Vanderbilt has, and they think that college students are at risk from COVID when there's.
I guess they're afraid they're going to sue or something. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, they got Scottie Pippen's son, the great Bulls player. He's one of their best players.
He is their best player. There's no question about it.
I've always wondered why they didn't build a new facility, because this old facility is out of date, way out of date.
Well, they redid it, Mike, and they lowered the capacity. And the reason they lowered the capacity, they put stadium chairs.
Yeah.
You used to have benches. You sat on a bench, they could cram thousands of people in.
As the walls go back, you actually lose sight of that wall.
There's no other gym like it.
I grew up with a Barry Goheen poster in my room.
Yeah, Barry Goheen was a great shooter.
Well, you got the teams sit in behind the goals, and then the court is raised up. People are courtside are sitting down below the court.
Right. It's well designed. Every seat is within 100 feet of the court. It goes straight up. It doesn't go backwards. It goes straight up. And there's 3 levels. So, you look it down.
It's real dark in there, too. Real dark. Is that right?
Well, it's dark in the stands, but on the court's lit up.
Yeah, in the stands, it's real dark.
Okay, well now it's time to take another commercial break. If Steve's listening, Gold Fingers, boo-boo. Man, that's got some good chicken and some real good French fries. Those crinkle fries, Jean's Flowers. They're probably recovering from Valentine's Day. But Steve might be on the phone and can't hear us, so we'll just keep talking. We need to talk to y'all about some more about Pike Liberal Arts winning the basketball state championship. Will, you know that Pike Liberal Arts has won the last 5 state championships in
wow, that's incredible.
Varsity boys sports.
See if you can find out the scoring, who led the scoring side.
It was Adam Cross scored 31 points in the championship game. Only a junior. Boy, don't you think he'll be a big college prospect next year? And I was on.
You got to think he's going to follow with his dad.
No, I would hope so.
You would hope.
I was on Forrest Lee's show last night. Really enjoyed it. It was preempted on Monday night because of the Pike Liberal Arts playing for the state championship. And at the beginning of the show, folks here at Troy Cable had a highlight package of Pike Liberal Arts championship game, about 2-minute highlight package, and it was impressive. Adam Cross hit a lot of three-point shots, but there were a lot of players helping him out.
I'll tell you something about Barry Goheen.
I think you could get them to run that on our show if you wanted.
Are we on a commercial?
No, I've asked, but I don't know if Steve's up in the booth. He might not.
Okay. Barry Goheen's a lawyer in Atlanta.
He probably could do it.
Yeah, Barry Goheen's a lawyer in Atlanta, and he was involved in. You remember Richard Jewell?
Yes.
Richard Jewell was accused of bombing the 1996 Olympics.
Clint Eastwood made a movie about that.
Yeah, and Barry Goheen was his lawyer. Really? And they did a movie about it. I haven't seen the movie, but Clint Eastwood did a movie about it.
He was falsely accused?
He was falsely accused, and he got a pile of money out of the city of Atlanta, too.
Well, Michael, you were over there working for the Olympics, weren't you?
Yeah, I was working for Haynes and Champion. I was working for these retired FBI agents that were doing the counterfeit goods task force. The head marketing guy for Champion Sports at the time played linebacker at Troy. His name was Mitch Parnell. And he came to Johnny Williams, Troy's athletic director, and asked if he had any guys working in the athletic department wanting to come over there and work at the Olympics. And me and a guy named Britt Bonner, former football player, went over there and worked for over a month in Atlanta. And I went to every opening ceremonies. I went to boxing. I saw the Dream Team play twice. I went to countless events for free. It was great. It was one of the funnest times you could ever have.
Was Barkley on that team?
Did he?
Was Barkley on that Dream Team?
Yeah, he was.
And Magic, Bird.
Yeah, it was the greatest team ever. Yeah.
Yeah, Magic and Bird and they say the best games in the history of basketball was the first team playing the second team and the Dream Team.
Yeah, I was at a boxing match one night, and Karl Malone and John Stockton were sitting behind me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. Talking about those dream teams and Michael Jordan and Barkley and Bobby Knight. Boy, I'm tying that in a lot of threads from the show today. Bobby Knight was coaching the dream team in whatever year.
It was before
Michael
that.
Jordan was a senior or junior at North Carolina.
Yeah.
Barkley would have been a junior at Auburn.
Auburn, yeah.
They had the Olympic trials. Y'all remember then? Back then it was all college players. Well, Bob Knight, in his infinite wisdom, does not even pick Charles Barkley to be on the.
So he was too fat, you know.
Yeah, ridiculous. But so he doesn't pick Barkley to be on the Olympic team, but he picks Michael Jordan, and that is when everybody knew that Michael Jordan was going to be a legend because they had a lot of practice games against the pros when they were getting ready for the Olympics. And Michael Jordan was tearing up those pros.
And Michael Jordan was picked number 2 in the NBA draft. Do you know who was picked number 1?
He picked number 3.
Or number 3. Do you know who picked number 1?
I think
Sam Bowie.
Sam Bowie. I don't know who number 2 was.
I'll tell you.
Blinding Lights.
No. Olajuwon from Houston.
I can see that. Olajuwon was a great player.
And you know why they picked Sam Bowie at Portland instead of Michael Jordan is because they had Clyde the Glide Drexler that played the same position of Michael Jordan. So they Sam Bowie, who had injuries and was a bust, Olajuwon, who is one of the greatest players ever.
Oh, yeah, he was great.
And won some titles for Houston. That's where Big Shot Bob got his first titles rings, wasn't it, Michael? Playing with Olajuwon?
Yeah, with Houston, yeah.
And then Michael Jordan was third pick.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, what do you think of this? I was reading Alabama State is going to play at UCLA next year in football. Oh, boy.
They must be getting $2 million to do that.
Oh, really? I hope so.
Yeah. On September the 10th, they'll travel play at UCLA. Yeah. Well, I tell you, you're right.
That is.
Does Troy still do that? Does Troy still play big teams like that and get money?
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about Troy and the conference there, and you talk about Jacksonville State. They're entering in a conference. Tell us who they're in conference with.
Well, they're going to finish. They're not going to make the move to Conference USA until 2023. So they're still going to be one double.
Did y'all see the interview with Mike Patrick and Coach O? It lasted about an hour.
No, I heard about it though. What
all right, he's interviewing Coach O, and Coach O, they're talking about Burrow, and how great LSU was and all that. He said, "Oh, I almost got fired at LSU when I lost to Troy." And you talking about hot seat? He said the fire was under my butt, and I told the players the next week, if we don't win this game, I'm gonna get fired. And they played Florida in Alligator Alley down there, and they beat them in the swamp.
The next week after they lost.
The next week after they lost to Troy, and they that saved his job.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize LSU ended up going 9-3 and played Notre Dame in a bowl, and I think they got beat in the bowl game by Notre Dame. So that wasn't good.
But he said he was gone.
That's right.
After Troy whipped him, and
he saved his job the next
week.
Saved
his job the next week. He won at Florida.
Yep.
I remember that.
Well, you ask about does Troy still play the big schools and get those money games? I think Troy opens next year against Ole Miss and Coach Kiffin. And
I want to say they've got a game scheduled with Nebraska too. I want to say.
Not next year. Next year they got Army. They got Army in Western Kentucky and Ole Miss.
And I don't know. I'm afraid playing Army, we're gonna get tired of playing Army.
Army's good.
I'm going to go to one of those games if I can sell some stock. And
does Army pay anything or not?
I wouldn't think they paid a lot. It's a small venue.
Now Army would come to Troy, wouldn't they?
They're coming to Troy.
They're coming to Troy.
Now I tell you what, it's worth the price of a ticket just to see all the cadets because they bring them all down here.
Mike, let us know who Troy's going to play next year.
Okay.
I think
Troy's opening up with Ole Miss. That will be Coach Summerall's coaching debut.
Mike, you get us some tickets, and me and you and Mike will go, and I'll get the rooms over there, and you can get the tickets to the ball game.
Which to Ole Miss?
Yeah, you can go too.
We're gonna get the rooms to the Golden Strike.
No, the one next door to it.
I have never tailgated on the Grove.
The Horseshoe. I've got a host over there. Her name is Yvette Whiteside, and she calls me all the time wanting to come over there. So I can handle that free.
Well,
Troy starts with Ole Miss on September 3rd. Then they play at home against Alabama A&M on the 10th.
Is that all right? Now, is that the Saturday before Labor Day?
It is Labor Day weekend. It's Saturday, September 3rd.
Mike, started over. Please start it over.
Saturday, September 3rd, they play Ole Miss, and the next week they're at home against Alabama A&M and Troy.
We'll go on Friday.
And then the next conference game, they'll be on the road out in Bowling Green, Kentucky, playing Western Kentucky. And then they'll play Army on November the 12th, late in the season in Troy at Veterans Memorial Stadium.
Wow.
So Army will come to Troy next year, but the conference schedule has not been released yet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to going to West Point, where a lot of people say that's a bucket list destination. The beauty of that campus and the stadium is just a beautiful scenery.
I went to several football games at Ole Miss when my daughter was in law school at Ole Miss, and it's something else now. That Grove's something else.
You know, Mike, Ed Duncan and Phil Hall, two of my very dear friends. Of course, you know, we lost Phil a few years ago, but they were huge Ole Miss. Is that Billy or being afraid of Mike?
Yeah, that's little Billy talking. Say hey to Mikey.
Hello.
Hey, Billy. Hey, Billy.
Yeah, we're about to go to school.
Last night when I was on Force show, I brought my son Jack, who's 6 years old, and Force was good enough to let Jack get on the show. So Jack Rice made his TV debut.
You're right. He'll enjoy that.
Well, you talk to your Troy people and get some tickets, and we'll go.
Well, I think it's perfect because it will. The Grove will probably not be as jam-packed as it would be for an Alabama or an Auburn game, and we can get the real Grove tailgating effect. And you probably know the best restaurants and places to go. And
oh yeah, I enjoy.
I've never been there.
I enjoy Oxford.
We can go to Abner's chicken finger place. Abner White from
I've got a cousin that lives in Oxford, and his name's Larry Wells, and he was married to William Faulkner's niece, and she passed away about 10 years ago. He's remarried now, but he's from Ozark.
And you know who Wiley White is here in Troy. She was Wiley Bradley White, and her son Abner owns Abner's chicken.
Wow.
In Ole Miss. Did you know that?
Did not.
You know, that's one of the most famous places in the Southeast, isn't it?
Yeah, he played there. He played at Ole Miss. He walked on at Ole Miss and played there. I want to say he played at Trinity.
I hear Ole Miss has got a pretty good football coach over there. Fair.
Well, they got Jackson Dart, the transfer quarterback from USC. They also got the starting running back from TCU that transferred in.
Michael, they're buying a team over there.
They lost their defensive coordinator. He went to A&M.
Yeah.
DJ Durkin. So it'll definitely be a tough place to play for Coach Summerall's first coaching.
How many 5 stars did Texas A&M recruit?
The whole signing class.
7 or 5? It was 5 or 7. I can't remember.
Some people are saying it's the greatest recruiting class of all time.
Yeah. Well, since they.
Tell us about it. You mean at A&M?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Yeah, that's what all the recruiting sites are saying.
I wonder what is the best. I bet Saban's got a claim on some of those best recruiting classes of all time. You could go back and look at some of his, and
well, when he got Julio Jones, that was.
I mean, he's had classes where he had 6 or 7 players that went in the first round in one 25-person class.
How many first-round picks has he had as the head coach at Alabama? I mean, it's like in the 40s, isn't it?
A lot, yeah.
You know, they all don't come out for the pros at the same time. But that class he had where Najee Harris was in it, Tua Tagovailoa was in it. They had a big offensive tackle that was in it. Was everybody in that class was a star.
Yeah.
But then you have the years.
Yeah.
Then you have.
Alabama's had 39 first-round picks since Saban's been in Alabama.
That's incredible. I wonder how many first-rounders Bobby Bowden had during the time he was at Florida State.
He would have a lot. Miami had more than anybody for a long time.
Well, you know, Jimbo went several years in a row winning out in the recruiting awards. Isn't that right? So he must be a great recruiter.
You know, Alabama had 6 in the first round last year. I can remember during the Mike Shula era and Dubose era where Alabama went 10, 15 years without having one player that went in the first round. And then you got 6 in one draft.
Yeah.
You know, Alabama should have had 7 because Christian Barmore made the all-rookie team. The defense tackle for New England. He should have been in the first round.
Great player.
He went, what, in the second round or third round?
Yeah, second round.
Yeah, if you counted all the ones that went in the...
Early in the second round, too.
Yeah, so Alabama tied the record, I think, with Miami for 6 in the first round, but like you said, they could have easily had 7.
Yeah, you know, everybody always talks about, you know, Scott Cochran, you know, as far as the strength and conditioning, rah-rah, and how much Alabama was going to miss him when he went to Georgia. But then they brought in this doctor and this other strength coach from Indiana and really hadn't missed a beat.
You know, whatever happened to Scott Cochran?
He had to step down for he had some mental issues last year at Georgia.
Well, what's he doing?
Pretty much the whole season, but then he came back right before the playoffs.
Oh, did he? So he's working over there then, yeah.
He was their special teams coach. Yeah, special teams coach.
He was an on-the-field coach.
No, I don't think he's gone back to being on-field because they've got some position for him.
Yeah, he was their special teams coach, but Muschamp had replaced him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is Muschamp still in?
Yeah.
Have they replaced the guy that went to Oregon?
Yeah, Muschamp's the co-defense coordinator with somebody else.
Okay.
Which is shocking that Muschamp would be a co-defense coordinator. He's been a defense coordinator everywhere he's been.
Well, he and Kirby are very good friends.
But they're real good friends, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, best friends.
Who came out of Valdosta?
They're on the same staff together at Valdosta State. Muschamp was the defense coordinator at Valdosta, and Kirby Smart was the secondary coach.
And tell us some of the other guys that were on Valdosta. All of the great coaches now have gone.
Well, I mean, originally you had Mummy and Leach. Mummy and Leach were together at Valdosta, and then you ended up having Chris Hatcher, who is now the head coach at Stanford. But there's one other person. Can't think of the other person.
Muschamp and Smart were both safeties at Georgia. Smart was a all-SEC safety. Muschamp, I believe, was a walk-on that became a starter and scholarship player. I think Kirby Smart, though, was the better player.
Hey, Michael, Vanderbilt was 13th in recruiting this year in the SEC. It's the best recruiting year they've had in I don't know how long. Guess who was 14th?
Auburn?
Nope.
No, Auburn wasn't bad.
No, wasn't Auburn.
It'd be I don't know, Missouri. North Carolina?
Florida.
No, Missouri had a really good year.
Florida had the worst.
Wow.
Missouri was top 10 recruiting in the country.
Yes, they were very good.
Let me get this little girl to school.
They're going to change a lot in Florida. This guy is more of a tackle running type team. You're not going to see near the wide open offenses that you've seen in the past.
He better, Mike. He better get him some players, or he won't be able to do anything.
Yeah, but he's got a knack. And no telling how many players he got from Louisiana to the portal. You ought to watch that closely. See how many he brought over there from his old team.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done. Wouldn't you?
Well, is that considered ethical? Yeah, but I mean.
Oh yeah, sure.
I would think it would. With the portal.
Bill, there are no rules anymore. It's wide open.
Well, it's like the coach from left Oklahoma and went to USC.
Oh, he's killing it.
And who went with him?
He took his best 2 or 3 players.
His quarterback went with him.
Yeah.
And that guy's going to win. Now I'm telling you, that guy, he'll. There's a good chance he'll make the playoffs next year. He's in a weak league, and he's head and shoulders better coach than anybody in that league. So, and he's already buying players like crazy in USC.
Yeah. Oh yeah, look for them to be a top 10 team.
They'll be there. They're coming. That guy's a super coach. In fact, I'm surprised he didn't go to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
There were 9 openings in the NFL,
yep.
And he didn't. And I know some of them wanted him, but you know.
You know, it'd be good for college football to have USC back as a powerhouse, it is really, you need some West Coast team doing well. Don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's probably not good for the health of the overall sport to have the Pac-12.
And the ACC's kind of gone down too, you know.
They have. It's been Clemson and everybody else.
Yeah, Clemson's just dominated.
And for 15 years, it was Florida State and everybody.
Florida State and Miami, yeah.
I think Florida State won the ACC championship 9 years in a row at one point.
Right.
So no competition whatsoever.
Well, Will Matthews, it's been a pleasure to have you on our show today. And
gone by fast.
Feel free to always come anytime you want to, and we'd love to have you.
It works out good. I have to be over at the courtroom in Troy in a few minutes, so.
Well, he said, Will said he had 150 cases yesterday.
That was in Webb and Cowards. I'm the judge over there in Houston County.
Yeah.
I don't know how you process it. I mean,
well, a lot of them don't show up, and a lot of them plead guilty. So you know that.
So Will, you'll be out front of the courthouse. You'll be out front of the courthouse giving away get out of jail free cards.
No.
Let me ask you, if I had to go before you and contest a speeding ticket or something, would you have to recuse yourself because we're friends and you know each other, or not? Or could you still?
I'd have to recuse myself.
Dang. There goes my in with the judge. I remember I was my dad was best friends with Judge Riley Green, and I always said, "Oh, I gotta, that's good."
I had a famous case with Riley Green. It was in Elba, okay, and there were 5 lawyers in the case, and it was a civil case, and anyway, my client it was over a business deal, and I can't remember the facts of it. It's been 30 years ago, but it rained that week, rained, and it was AEA week. And my wife was at the beach down there in the yellow house with all 4 of my children, and the oldest one was about 6 years old. And she called me, just dog cussed me. When you gonna get down here? When you gonna get? I said, I gotta try this case. It's not. So the case gets over with on Thursday. Well, you coming down tonight? No, we got to go back for the jury. The jury's still out. They're gonna bring them back in the morning. So the jury comes back, and my client won. My client didn't have to pay any money. So I headed straight from Elba to the beach, and it rained and rained and rained and rained. Well, I get down there, and she said, we're going back home. I've had enough of this rain. I said, all right, whatever. So I spent Friday night at the beach. We came back on Saturday. We were the last car to cross the bridge at Newton, and Elba flooded all the way to the top of the courthouse that day.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was about 30 years ago, the great...
In 92, I think, or something like that.
Boy, we could do a whole show talking about the Elba flood.
On the show today. Appreciate it.
I'm going to tell, next time we come back on tomorrow, I'm going to tell one of my favorite Judge Green stories.
But he was the judge in that case. He's a little fella.
Yeah, he was a great judge and a longtime judge, and
yep.
He was good friends with my father and my uncle, Bobby Rice. They were all SAEs at the University of Alabama.
Yeah. This was right at the end of Judge Green's career, probably.
Yeah. All right, well, we want to thank everybody for watching the show. Thank you so much, Will, for coming in.
Anytime.
Keep calling and come in. We love hearing you. I still think you ought to write your memoirs. You've got more interesting things that have happened in your life than anybody I know.
Well, I guess when everybody in there is dead, I can write it.
You gotta wait.
So long, y'all. Have a great day.
All right, see y'all.
All right, Mike. We'll see you tomorrow, and Steve, you can cut us off. And if you've missed any of this and any of this intrigues you, or you can watch it again at 1:30. So, thank you for watching Today in LA, and see you tomorrow.
Have a good one.
I wish you could taste how much better food tastes when cooked on a Green Mountain grill. But I can let you in on the reason that's true. Our pellets contain water, so they create steam while you cook, keeping your food moist.